Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Time Out with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azzalina, I am Derek Gano. Thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. The NBA season has concluded, and the NBA Finals start tomorrow, Tuesday, July 6th. To help us talk some NBA Finals as well as the recap of the conference finals that just finished up, on our left side there, Mike Azzalina. He's got the NBA Finals in the background. I'm sure it's in his head. He's ready to go. Thank you, Mike, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure.
And on our right side there, we have Leonard Tabone. We appreciate you, Leonard, for coming on. You were there for the first round recap, so we appreciate having you back on.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
And of course, top left, there's Joe. You don't need any introduction for him. So as we get started, the conference finals recap in the Western Conference. Yes, Joe had it. The Phoenix Suns are officially going to the NBA Finals. They defeated the LA Clippers 4-2. The Kawhi Leonard-less Clippers. Chris Paul came back from his COVID issues. I believe it was in Game 3. But no sighting of Kawhi Leonard. Mike, let's start off with you. It's easy to say, although also impossible to say, would the series have been any different had Kawhi Leonard played? And ultimately, it doesn't matter because he didn't play. The Suns are moving to the finals. But go back in time a little bit here. Do we think that had Kawhi Leonard played, it would have at least been a better series, but would it have tipped the favor to the Clippers, do we think?
It's funny, we were talking about this before we went on the air, and Leonard made the point that when he's playing his game, he's a top 5 player, arguably a top 5 player in the league, and that's it. Couldn't be more accurate. He's a game changer. I mean, they have another game changer on the floor, another two-way star on the floor too, as well. But I'll play the other side of this and say if he plays, no, the Suns still win. They feel, after that 41-point performance from CP3 the other night, it just feels like a team of destiny to me. And the way that DeAndre Ayton has played, they didn't have an answer for him in the post at all, which I do feel like as we get into this preview, that's something that will change a little bit, but I don't feel like there was an answer for him. So even with Kawhi out there, I just feel like it was, Chris Paul was going to be Chris Paul and Devin Booker was going to be Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton was just going to be this guy who's all of a sudden become one of the most dominant forces around the rim in the NBA over the last month.
What do you think, Leonard? I mean, Paul George probably played a lot better than he would have had Kawhi Leonard played. He obviously scored. He had the first most minutes in the playoffs. He had the most points in the playoffs at that time. Second in field goals made, second in free throws, second in three-pointers made. So he put up large stats, so maybe trying to cover up for Leonard. But what do you think? Do you think had the series been a little different if Leonard played?
There's no question. He's one of the best two-way players in the NBA. So Kawhi Leonard, not only his offensive presence, but defensively against Booker, maybe sliding over to Chris Paul, that changes momentum, and also to his confidence. I mean, here's the thing: Paul George. In the when we did the last one, we talked about number ones and number twos, right? Paul George is a number 2. He masked himself. He was trying to play a number 1. I mean, I have some stats too. He shot 42% from the field in that series. Shot 77% from the free throw line. He missed 2 critical free throws in game 2.
Yes.
That would have won the game. So let's just say this: Kawhi plays and Paul George makes those free throws. This could easily be a Clippers win the other way, right? The first 2 games, game 1 and game 2, were a total 7 points. Game 4 win was 4 points. So they won 3 of the 4 games in this series by a total of 11. Now, obviously, we know what happened in game 6. That was just, Chris Paul played probably his best game ever. I mean, he's one of only a few players in NBA history to have over 40 points and 0 turnovers in a game. So he throws that up in a game 6. Yeah, it was over. It was like 130 to 105 or something like that. So Kawhi Leonard plays. The whole series is different. Paul George doesn't have to take 22 shots a game to get his 28 points. I mean, the Suns did a great job. They made him a volume shooter. And I don't think they did Kawhi. I think Kawhi could really get in there and get under people's skin. I mean, think about it. All those times that Patrick Beverley was guarding somebody, Kawhi probably would have been. And that's, I mean, come on. I mean, he was at the end, he was
You're
like,
not a Patrick Beverley fan.
I'm not.
We know
At
that.
the end of that game, he's like, that's like a meet me at the flagpole 7th grade kind of deal. Like it was so bush league, that guy, right? Get him out. Like, what a punk. I'm sorry. No, I don't like him because he hasn't proven that he's a consistent player, and he's nah. So Kawhi Leonard plays. I think the Clippers can win that series. That kills me as a Laker fan that they would go to the finals. But no, I think Kawhi Leonard makes a huge impact and changes some of these shots. So you had, Reggie Jackson. He put up 17 field goal attempts during the series per game. Obviously they could have maybe went a little bit differently with their lineup. But you're right, DeAndre Ayton, they had no match for him. But I think you have, again, one of the could be top five players in the NBA missing. So, yeah, I think the Clippers would win, unfortunately. Yes, the Suns are a team of destiny, but he changes that whole dynamic in the defensive schemes.
Joe, what did you think?
Well, I think I told you back a while ago when I picked the Suns is I've always loved Chris Paul. I've said it from when I used to watch him at Wake Forest. And I continue to say it as he had his career in the NBA. But he put the Suns over the top, right? They have Mikal Bridges, who's a good shooter. They have Devin Booker, who's an outstanding scorer and shooter. DeAndre Ayton has come into his own as now a couple years out of, I think it was Arizona he went to. And now you get this guy that's the floor general, that's the quarterback, right? And we're seeing it. Like, we're seeing it all come together right in front of us. And the one thing I'll say about Paul, though, I mean, he had double-double in Game 3, and that was it. Game 3 was over. I mean, you can't let him get off like that. You can't let him hit that jump shot, the padded in Chris Paul jump shot, getting in the basket with ease, getting in the line. And then he had 22 in Game 5 and 41 in Game 6 we talked about. I just keep saying he's the leader of this team. It doesn't hurt when you get Cameron Payne scoring 29 points. That guy, he's not even a starter for people that don't know the NBA. He's not even a starter, guys. But DeAndre Ayton has been a huge part of this series. But in reference to LA, I will say this. Reggie Jackson, who a lot of fans might not know this, but he used to be a Detroit Piston. And he was a good scorer, but this guy in this playoff, especially this series, he averaged 20 a game. He's 24, 19, 23. I'll tell you right now, that's a very good match for Paul. But I don't know. I think we said it. This is the team of destiny, as we've alluded to it already. And I'm pretty happy with the fact that I picked them. And I can't go back. I picked the Nets to beat the Bucks. So I will stick with the Suns and root for them now. But, never been to Arizona, but I'm rooting for the Suns.
Now, Leonard, you mentioned about how the Clippers kind of changed up their lineup. I wrote about, do we think that Ty Lue tried to be a little too clever here? I have Game 1, he had the small lineup that he's been doing throughout all the playoffs, no bigger than Marcus Morris or Batum. Then they got destroyed by Booker and Ayton. So then they brought Zubac in. He played a lot of minutes in Game 2, 34. Then they went to, in Game 3, after they won, or they lost both games, then Game 3, they went to a 3-guard lineup. They went to a Man and Beverly and Jackson were all in the starting lineup. They won that game, and then they went back to another different lineup in Game 4. Marcus Morris was back in the starting lineup. Do we think he tried to be a little too clever with what he was doing? Maybe should have just stuck with what was working when Zubac got back into the starting lineup and then the smaller guards? Or
yes, you could, the saying is, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So it worked, right? They won Game 3. They won game 3 pretty convincingly. And then you change it again. Now, I could understand after a loss changing. I totally understand that. And really, Ty Lue was at a disadvantage. He's missing his best player. So when you're missing your best player, you got to change things up. So I give him credit for saying, taking a chance here. I'm going out on a limb. I'm going to make some changes. But after game 3, they found something that worked. And then they went back to the same thing that they lost before. That doesn't make any sense to me. I think Ty Lue's a good coach. I don't think he's in the upper echelon of coaches. I think he's a good coach. But yes, I think he got a little bit too cute with his lineups. You won game 3 by, I think, 14 points. Just play the same lineup. And then, I mean, that game in game 4 was the pivotal game of the series. They scored 80 points. 80. I mean, I thought I was watching a game like a Knicks-Bulls game from 1993 or 2 or something like that, where Xavier McDaniel was punching out Scottie Pippen and chairs were flying all over the place. Like, that's the kind of game that kind of gave you a feel, right? So he scored 80 points. Like, what are you doing? You scored 116 the 2 days before. So, yes, he was too cute. He messed around too much. I mean, I still don't think they win the series without Kawhi anyway. But if they would have won game 4, that's 2-2 going back to Phoenix, which they ended up winning that game. So yeah, he got a little bit too cute during this playoff.
And Mike, just to throw a couple extra stats in there, in game 4 that Leonard was talking about, when they went back to Marcus Morris at starting center, DeAndre Ayton, 19 points, 22 rebounds in 41 minutes. Then Marcus Morris only played 6 minutes in the second half, and the Clippers had a 44-34 in the second half. Obviously, then game 5, I think Zubac wasn't able to play and was injured, so he had to switch things up. But what are your thoughts on the tinkering of Ty Lue? Was it too much?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I couldn't agree more with what Leonard was saying. You know, the old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It reigns so true here. Guys, you know how much I love the plus minus. Talked about it on the last show. And if you want to take a guess at who had the highest plus minus when he was on the floor in game 3, I'd welcome it. But I don't know that we have all the time in the world for you, but it is Zubac. He had the biggest plus minus. He was at plus 28, highest on the floor that night in game 3. And then his minutes were cut in game 4. And to me, obviously, he was a difference maker being on the floor for 30 plus minutes in game 3. And I agree. I don't see Ty Lue as an upper echelon coach. I was thrilled that the Sixers didn't bring him to Philly this all season. And it was for this reason. When I watched him in prior destinations, he did seem to overcoach. And listen, you've got some stars on, and I get that you're missing Kawhi Leonard, but you won game 3 by the biggest margin in the series other than the deciding game. And everything went out the window after that. You went back to it. I don't know if he was trying to play games on the other side of the court with Williams or what, but like, don't just coach the game the way that's been successful for you in prior games. Don't try and change something that worked for you. And obviously it bit him. It bit him good because game 4 ended up being a loss and yeah, they stole game 5, but game 6, they didn't have the guy who made the difference in game 3 for him.
Joe.
Well, when I saw that question earlier, you know, I don't know a lot about Lue. I mean, I knew of him, but what I do know is that it's the old adage, and we've talked about it, but I'm going to give it another spin. When things are going right, why try to over maybe manage it, right? Even though you're losing Leonard, there's Marcus Morris I just saw scored in the game 6 the other night, scored 26 points and 9 rebounds. And we were just saying how earlier on in the series, they didn't even use them. Was it game 4, right? Something like that. So why? Like, just go with what's, like you said, go. The other old adage, go with what brought you there. Except for Leonard, of course. I don't love Lue as a coach. I think Leonard's put it best. I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he's a coach that, say the Lakers are there next year, I pick the Lakers over the Clippers, unless the Clippers do more to their team. I don't think Tyronn Lue is maybe the answer in Los Angeles right now. But he's a good coach. I won't say he's a bad coach. So that's how I feel. I can't lie. I didn't watch much of either series, but I did do my research. So
Real quick, Leonard, let's start with you. $36 million player option for Kawhi Leonard, 21-22 season. Do you think he comes back? He's
He's
gone.
out the door.
let's go.
He's out the door. He's already out the door. He was hurt, but his engagement in the game for someone who, like, this is the conference finals, this is a big deal. He kind of just, I don't know, like he was just sitting at home watching like a boring movie. It just was weird. He's just not a very outgoing guy to begin with. He's always been quiet. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. But come on. I mean, he wasn't like you were in a hospital bed. Like, you could have engaged your teammates a little bit. You could have been, I don't know. I just feel like he's just
sitting up in the.
I don't think that team. I just don't think he does. He's there. They tried. It's not working. I think he's out the door.
He's sitting up in the luxury boxes watching.
Yeah.
Like what are you doing, man? Like,
Get on the
$20
bench.
cheeseburger. You know what I mean? At the Staples Center. Like, come on.
dude. He's out there.
Release.
He's not coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just who Kawhi is or what. I know he had the magic run in Toronto and that's what landed him here. But to me, I agree. I think he's out, and I think I don't know. He's just such a weird guy.
He is. He's just a very funny duck.
Weird guy.
I don't know. Like, I would love to come to the Lakers, but I kind of don't.
Yeah. Him and LeBron be great together.
It cost $30-some million, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's out. There's obviously that could be a whole other show to talk about where he may go, but we'll see. I mean, maybe Miami. Maybe we'll sit in the sun a little bit and play with Jimmy Butler and those guys and Spoelstra, best coach in the NBA probably. So we'll talk about it another day.
It's good.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. You don't think of, as much as people love to rag on LeBron, even if it were his last season, he is not someone who's going to, if he's injured, sit up in the press box. He's going to be down there with his teammates trying to help out, try to be another coach.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Another player who would be.
He was there.
Yeah. And where do they go from here? I mean, Leonard, you said it. I really don't think that Paul George is a number one option. You look at some of the games that they lost. Game 2, his first 3-pointer was in the fourth quarter. In game 4, he was 5 of 20, and he fouled out of the game. Whereas in the games they won, he was the best reason why. 15 of 20, 41 points in game 5. And then Mike's plus minus, if we look at that, in game 6, he was a minus 25 on the court. So
yes. Sorry, I don't have a PhD in math. I can't figure out this plus minus.
Yeah.
Just watch a game and relax and like, okay, this is good, this is bad. So a little old school.
Definitely.
So Mike, would you agree they probably need to bring at least Paul George caliber, or maybe better, if they're ever going to make it to the Western Conference Finals?
If Kawhi's out, man, it's going to be tough for them. They're another Paul George doesn't get the job done. That West is so tough. It is so difficult out there. I was looking through, because you have another question coming up, and I was trying to map out like the Eastern Conference. And as I'm kind of like rolling through the top teams in the NBA, they're all Western Conference teams, like with up and coming teams that are kind of sitting there. We talked about the Mavericks before, and you know what they have, and if you lose a Kawhi Leonard, there's really not another. I don't know. I can't think of another guy who's going to be available. I guess maybe via trade, because it is such a weird free agency year, but maybe via trade. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take more than just another Paul George to put them in contention out west, especially with teams like the Lakers and as I mentioned before, the Mavericks, who are up and coming, and there's just a bunch of teams out west, and the Suns. Like, there's just a bunch out there. So I mean, it's going to take more than just another Paul George.
Do we think that we know we talk about this name a lot, and I hear it a lot on talk radio these days, but is Damian Lillard makes sense out in LA?
Damian Lillard makes sense anywhere.
All right.
I don't know what they're going to give him, though.
In the Staples Center. Anyway, all the banners.
So the the Clippers window seemed a very slim window, and there it goes. It may have gone already, according to our
Well,
helpers here. But
yeah, the problem with the Clippers is they gave away so much because in that free agency, Kawhi Leonard's like, well, get me somebody else, get me a running mate. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. Obviously, we didn't know what he said, but get me a running mate and I'll sign. So they go out and they give, I mean, the Thunder have like 3 drafts all to themselves, basically.
yeah,
Get a haul, and they also get a very good player from the Clippers. The name has left me. I don't remember the young kid's name, but he's very good. They got him in return, which I think they flipped for somebody else already. But the point is that the Clippers don't have anywhere to go. They just have money. Well, if you don't have the right free agency, you don't have the right pieces, it's really not going to matter. So yeah, I don't really know that team, unfortunately, is crashing and burning as we
Thinking of Shai Alexander.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
Wow.
Kid's awesome. Yeah.
And they got
Someone
draft picks for the next 46 years.
Yeah, they have every draft pick, and basically, if they were doing draft day over, they'd probably do it with the Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they should just do a Disney Plus membership in there too while they're at it.
Like it. That's awesome.
So let's move on to the Eastern Conference Finals here, where we had the number 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks and the number 5 seed Atlanta Hawks. Again, some injuries that took place at the end of this series, not so much in the beginning. Trae Young started, missed game 4 and 5. Giannis missed games 5 and 6. Bucks end up coming away with it 4-2, and they're headed to their first finals since 1974. Joe, we want to start off with you. What were some of the keys to the series, if we don't want to mention Giannis's names too much?
Well, if I go right from the Sixers series and how the Hawks ended up, some people say the Sixers lost it, but Atlanta still had to win the games, and they ended up winning them. Trae Young scored, but straight in this playoff, Trae Young scored in 2 games. He had 83 points in games 1 and 2, I think it was. That's pretty amazing. That's a lot of points. And I know that's his biggest skill was to score the basketball, but that's still really phenomenal in a big series. He's now not just a young player. I think he's come onto the scene as what could be a star in the next couple of years. John Collins, who they were really high on. I can't remember where he went to college, but he was a good player, and they were high on him when they drafted him, I remember, and he scored 23. He scored 19. He's a good small forward. He may need to work on his outside game, but they got guys like Reddish and Hunter there and Horder to shoot. I'm impressed with Atlanta. They just ran into a really good Bucks team. And we said it before. I think Leonard said it. I think Mike said it last time. Jrue Holiday, Chris Middleton, and aforementioned Giannis. That's a real good 3. Sorry, New Jersey. Like, that's a real good 3. And they seem to play well together, and their bench isn't bad either. But, I think Milwaukee's going to give the Suns a really good series. And I won't give away my predictions for later.
So Mike, obviously, yes, the Hawks took down the Sixers, and now they made it to the conference finals. Again, if you throw out would it have been different if you had a completely healthy Trae Young? That's, impossible to really know, because the best player on the other team also got injured. So, however, the Hawks definitely took the playoffs and the NBA kind of by surprise here. I mean, a lot of people, if you took a poll, I would probably say it was probably about 60-40 that thought that the Knicks were going to win that first round series. And then most did not think that they would beat the Sixers. Nate McMillan did a great job when he took over. The question I posed to you guys, you had a chance to look at the questions. Moving forward, say the next 5 years, how many teams in the East would you rather than the Atlanta Hawks and how they're currently constructed. Of course, obviously, huge injuries or trades could change that, but as they're currently constructed.
Yeah, I laughed when I saw that question, because I was one of those people who, all bias aside, thought that the Sixers would walk through that series. As a matter of fact, I remember saying to a couple of people, I feel like we could even win that series without Embiid. And obviously that was not the case. Even with the guy, we struggled to compete. So, they definitely opened eyes. But you did see the difference without Trey and then without a healthy Trey. It must have been something with the Sixers that Kevin Herter could create his own shot in that game 7, because he could do nothing.
Guy disappeared.
he was really having a hard time creating.
Yeah.
But again, the Bucks as a team defense, they're a phenomenal team defense, and they do the little things right. And Brooke Lopez getting out on Herter and giving him a hard time on those switches and stuff. It was really impressive to watch from afar. But to answer your question, I'm gonna go. There are 2 teams, and my bias will probably show. I'd still take the Sixers. To be quite honest with you, I think when I look at Daryl Morey and just the executive that he is and his understanding of where this team is, he came up with the 5% rule. If you follow basketball closely enough, you'll know that Daryl Morey is the guy who said, like, if you have a 5% chance to win the title, you go for it. And in my eyes, the Sixers in the East have a larger than 5% chance to at least get there. With Embiid playing at the level he's playing at over the course of the next 3-4 years, just putting him with somebody else. And yes, they have to do that. They have to go get somebody to pair with him that's going to score. And I think he will. I think that's going to be project number 1 this offseason, is finding the guy to complement him in the final minutes of a game. And, I'm going to go with the team you mentioned. I love the New York Knicks, man. I love the New York Knicks. I love Tibbs, and I love the winning attitude he's brought. It's an attractive place for free agency. Yeah, I get that last year they missed on the big pieces that were out there, including Kevin Durant, who we've talked about quite a bit. But they showed that they can win this year, and they have young pieces that can win. The Derrick Rose went there and showed that a veteran can go and be successful with guys like Julius Randle, with guys like RJ Barrett. The young building blocks are there. They need a star to pair over there to triple with those guys. But I like what they've done. I like what they have. I enjoy what's there. Obviously we could say the Nets, but I've talked about them, and with the 3 dudes who are there, there's injuries and everything that they have to deal with in that regard. And just the idea of what they gave up to kind of put those guys into place. I'm not as, hefty on that. And yeah, the Bucks are the Bucks, and they're going to be the Bucks. So they'll always be there, and they are built around a 15th pick. Like, that's kind of shows what you can do if you're managed the right way, and your organization does what they did. It does the right things to build around it, like going to get a Drew Holiday to make a run with that 5% chance. So I know I said a bunch of teams there, but I'd put my top 2 at the Sixers and the Knicks. I just love what the Knicks have, and I think that they could make a run at a couple of guys here in the next couple of years.
Leonard, what do you think? How many in the next 5 years? How many teams would you rather in the East than the Hawks? Obviously, it can be said that I don't know if he's aiming for it, but I feel like Trae Young is trying to be the villain in this league. Just so much. I specifically remember it was game 1 where he sit there for about 3 seconds at least before taking the 3, and just stuff like that. But
doing a heck of a job, Derek.
Yeah. Oh, biases aside, Leonard, what do you think?
Well, it is kind of a tough question, because 5 years is an eternity in the NBA, right? We can look back 5 years on teams. We thought, oh my God, how could this team never get to the finals, or how would this team? You just never know, right? But okay, so I think that obviously the team that beat the Hawks with that core intact is only going to get better. I think they gained a lot of confidence. I think win or lose in the finals, I think they've gotten over their the mental hump in the East. And I'm a huge Miami Heat fan. I mean, I know they didn't have a good season this year. I think they just ran out of gas. I really do. I think last year's final run, they gave everything and they didn't have enough time to get back together. So I would take the Miami Heat because I just feel like, again, Eric Spoelstra is the best coach in the NBA. I think he's done so much with so little in most of his career. Yes, he did have LeBron, he did have Dwayne Wade, and they won the 4 NBA finals in a row. I get that. But I'm saying in general, he's one of the best, if not the best coaches in the NBA. So I would take the Bucks and I would take the Heat. The Hawks, look, they're a good team, and Nate McMillan is a good coach. But really, I think this whole free agency thing with John Collins is going to sway this team one way or another. If they can re-sign him, but he's going to want max money. So now you got to commit max money to a guy, and I'm not saying he's not worth it, but Charles Barkley says you can't pay everybody. So you can't pay everybody. Trae Young's going to get a big contract. Capella. I mean, these guys are going to need a lot of money, and Atlanta is not going to be able to pay them all. So I'm going to go with the Bucks because I feel like they put together a really good team. I'm not going to say the Nets because I think they're going to – I think with the way their aging is, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to mesh for the next 5 years. And the Heat. I think with Jimmy Butler and those young kids down there shooting threes, and who knows who they're going to be able to add, I think could be a team that's going to be reckoned with in the future.
And obviously, as Leonard mentioned, John Collins, restricted free agent this offseason. So long as the Hawks decide to match whatever money anyone else throws out there, which could be large money.
Yes, and they also can do something else with a restricted free agent. They can match the offer, but do a sign and trade, I guess, with a restricted free agent, so they can get something back for him. I mean, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I think Atlanta's very talented. And Trae Young, I mean, the sky's the limit. The guy's like the next Reggie Miller in, like, the villain. He wants to play. He relishes that role. I really like the kid. I think he's definitely a great player. And Nate McMillan's a great coach. But, yeah, I think I'm going to go with 2 other teams. I'm not going to take them for the next 5 years.
Joe, what do you think?
All right. So I put down 3. I'm going to say the Bucks and Hawks are going to stay around to be relevant. I don't know if they're going to keep on being able to add as much as these other teams, but Derek, I'm going to go with your Celtics as 1 because I think if they get a coach in there, I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart are good enough. If they get another player, maybe I'm going to go a little outlandish here and go Celtics, but I the error of my ways. I'm going to mention them as 1. And you know what? I'm not going to play the homer card, but I will say I do believe the Nets could be really, really dangerous if they stay healthy. So they have to stay healthy. They're older too. If you look at those top 3, we're not going to go into it again, but just saying. And you know what? Yeah, I'm going Philly because if they get rid of Ben Simmons, they're going to get better altogether, and they're going to bring in a shooter in there. Like Mike was talking about, Morey's going to do something. Morey's going to get a shooter in here. Compliment Embiid. You might lose a couple players, but you still can grab other players. The draft's big; they know that. So, I think Philly, Boston, and New Jersey. I think those 3 teams could be really, really good teams going forward.
Leonard, I noticed you didn't pick the Sixers. Was there a reason why you don't want the Sixers?
I think the Ben Simmons thing is still very up in the air. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, right? So I just couldn't figure out him in the series against the Hawks. Very, very confusing. And I really feel like he's going to be traded, but who do you get? And how do you construct this team? Doc Rivers is a pretty good coach, but you're trading a big part of your team, and depending who you get back. I mean, before the Warriors, I think, traded the 7th pick for Siakam from the Toronto Raptors, I thought that the Warriors could trade Wiggins, the 7th and the 14th for Ben Simmons. I think that trade would have worked really well for Golden State because Golden State has shooters, and Ben Simmons could just go over and do it. He wouldn't have to shoot at the end of the game because they have players that can shoot. And the Sixers could get a decent player in return, a wing player that's decent. I'm not saying he's a great player, but a 7 and the 14 that they could turn into something. But they would probably hit on one of those picks. But that's a lot of what ifs, and that's off the table now. So yeah, I didn't pick the Sixers. I like the Sixers. I think they're a good team. I like the way they constructed it. Ben Simmons could have just been able to make some free throws and hit a mid-range jump shot every once in a while, they probably would be playing. I would have played in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I didn't pick them just because it's a big mystery, because there's one of their best players is who knows if he's going to be on the team.
Well, I'll say it again. I loved from the beginning how the Hawks constructed this team, because it seemed to set up to be very good this year. I do love Trae Young as a player, but not as the person on the court sometimes. Although he's one of those people, you love him on your team, hate him if he's not on your team. I really like the shooters you said, but I think that came blatantly obvious there, Mike, that people like Kevin Huerter cannot make plays without someone like Trae Young to drive and dish to guys like that. I wanted more from Bogdanović. Obviously, he was injured in the beginning of the series. I think towards the tail end of that series, he really started to come out there. He had 20 points in game 4 and 28 in game 5. So I thought he was starting to get there. And I always like Clint Capella. You're not going to ask much from him. He's going to be the defender in the middle, the shot blocker in the middle, and that defensive presence. I do agree with Leonard. If they lose John Collins, that's going to be tough, because he's kind of that mid-range guy that you got. I'd be interested how DeAndre Hunter fits in when he comes back, because I really like him as a nice 3-and-D player too. As well as Okongwu. He really stepped up a little bit in this past series too. Mike, let's start off with you. So I think it just came out today that Nate McMillan had his interim tag pulled for obvious reasons. They played amazing. Glad they did it. Would have been horrible had they not. But let's just talk briefly about the job that Nate McMillan did after taking over a 14-20 Atlanta Hawks team. It was very hard to see or imagine that they went from the team they were to the team they finished as. But let's give him some props before we move on to the NBA Finals preview here.
Yeah, 4 years. I think the Hawks said it for us. I mean, they pull the interim term, they get the tag, they give him the 4-year contract. Watching that team play against the Sixers and getting the sideline stuff, the mic'd up stuff, and hearing the way he coached a pretty young team through a challenging series. And look, I said it on the last show. The Sixers lost 9 games the last 2 years at Wells Fargo and lost 3 to this Hawks team. And that doesn't happen without good coaching. It just doesn't happen without good strategy and having that calmness and sometimes an appropriate sense of urgency on the sideline. And he had a really nice balance of those two things. Nate McMillan was never a superstar when he was on the court. He never was. He just wasn't that type of player. He's a tremendous role player. And you can see how that error that he had on the court as a player kind of carries over to the bench. He's very even keeled on the bench. He coaches his players up multiple times. I heard him instill confidence by not allowing the Sixers talent to overcome what was on his sideline. Talking them up on the sideline, telling them that they can't run with them. They cannot run with you when these guys are on the floor. Run them out of the gym, run them off the court. He knew the things that needed to be said and done to bring his team to bring them the sense of urgency that was necessary to win that series. I was impressed with him as a coach. I thought he outcoached Doc and made the adjustments when he needed to get the right guys the ball in the right spots, get the right matchups in the right spots. And, he, to me, was the best coach in the series against the Sixers. And I feel like there were times even in this series when he lost Trae that he outcoached the other side quite a bit. But, at the end of the day, losing your best player when there are 2 really good players on the other side without their best player, it's hard to overcome. So I'm glad they pulled the interim tag. It's well-deserved.
Joe?
Well, I will say that I'm glad Mike brought up that he was a former player, because I do remember him playing for the Seattle Supersonics back in the day with Gary Payton and such players. So I know it shows my age again, but I do remember him playing then. But no, he's kind of like that steadying hand, I would say. He's that guy that isn't going to get probably too high. He isn't going to get too low. And he did instill confidence in these young players. They have a young team. And that's kind of why I like them to go in the next 5 years, because he's going to probably be a part of that big time, part of that ride for Atlanta. I hope he can calm down the antics of Trae Young a little bit. I hope he's going to be able to smooth him out a little bit, because I think he's a likable guy. I've heard different interviews. I've watched him do this stuff when COVID was around. He did the shots when they went around to the different places. Anyway, and I liked him in Oklahoma, I'm not going to lie. But the stuff he was doing when it came to the jumping into players, as me and Mike talked off air about it many times, there's not really a lot of place in the game for it. I don't like it. And I hope McMillan works with him maybe on that a little bit. I know it's not like the biggest deal, but I just want to address it. But no, he's a really good coach. Guys, he could, if he wins a championship in the next 10 years, we're all going to talk about him in even glowing, more glowing praise. But yeah, Nate McMillan, very average player, but a pretty good coach.
Leonard, you want to finish this off?
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone's been saying. I think Nate McMillan is exactly what the Hawks needed. They needed a veteran presence. They needed someone that say, look, I've been there. And he's been to the finals. He played on some very good teams. He played on the Seattle Supersonics team that, I don't know if I remember watching this game in my bedroom on one of the crappiest TVs. I joke about this TV, but watching Mutombo holding that ball on the ground as not the finger wag. He wasn't doing that. It was his own. But when that team was very good, that team should have went to the finals. That team could have won a championship, right? So he's played on very, very good teams. So he can go to those players. And he also played with Gary Payton. And, Trae Young listens to him, okay? So, yeah, Trae Young did get a little bit. Think about this. The Hawks started 14-20. Their season wasn't going much. Nate McMillan takes over. The whole team changes. So, I feel like Trae Young is just going to mature. What is he, like 22 or 23 years old? Give the guy a little bit of a break. Very emotional, and he's just playing off that emotion. And he'll learn like everybody else in life. He'll learn those things. But yeah, Nate McMillan, great pickup. So glad they removed the interim tag from him. Perfect player, perfect coach for that team, and I wish him all the best. I'll tell you what. This NBA playoff and the way the NBA is structured moving forward, there are so many teams that can win. Think about it. We're the Suns and the Bucks with the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals. If you would have said that at the beginning of the year, you would have out of whatever place you were at. Although he would have bets. Yeah, I can imagine what those lines were back then. But yeah, no, great. I'm so happy for Nate McMillan. I think he found a great team to coach. It fits his style. They fit his style. Yeah, they're a match made in heaven.
Well, and here we go. Cue the NBC NBA Finals music from the 1990s. Play it in the background. In the NBA Finals here, number 2 seed out of the West, Phoenix Suns. Number 3 seed out of the East, Milwaukee Bucks. The Suns finished the season with the better record, so they will have the home court advantage, 51-21. The Bucks were 46-26. How did they get here? The Suns, sorry, Leonard, defeated the Lakers in 6 games in the first round.
Paper bag with the holes cut out.
In the second round, the Suns swept the Denver Nuggets, led by MVP Nikola Jokic in 4 games. And then, of course, just defeated the LA Clippers in 6 games. The Milwaukee Bucks, another pretty good sweep against the Miami Heat, 4 games in the first round. And the Brooklyn Nets in 7 games in round 2. And then the Atlanta Hawks in 6 games in the conference finals. The last NBA Finals appearance for the Milwaukee Bucks, 1974, last win, 1971, last appearance for the Suns. was 19. Oh boy, I just had it up. 1993, 1993, and they have never won an
Dan
NBA
Marley.
Finals championship.
Tom Chambers. That team was stacked.
Kevin Johnson, right?
Johnson.
KJ.
Unfortunately, that team ran into Michael Jordan. So
Yeah,
Like,
well, that was it.
yes,
doesn't make a difference. That was a lost
So
cause. I remember
these
watching.
two.
It's funny. The other day they're talking about it's been 28 years, and I'm like, oh, I remember watching. I remember watching that with my dad and my brother having pizza, watching Game 6, and like I remember all that stuff. I'm like, wow, I am old.
We're getting old, Leonard.
Yeah.
These two have played twice this season, by the way. Both won by the Phoenix Suns by a total of 2 points.
Wow.
On February 10th, Suns 125, Bucks 124. And on April 19th, in overtime, Suns 128, Bucks 127 in Milwaukee. We're just going to go right down the list here with all the key components of each of these teams, and we're going to determine who has the advantage in terms of the starting five, the bench, the coach, and the star power. So, Mike, how about we start off with you? Starting five, for the most part, let's go with the guys who have played the most minutes, at least. For the Bucks, you have Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, PJ Tucker. For argument's sake, everyone, let's try to assume that Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing in this series and will be, for the most part, not full health, but 90% health, and makes it through the series. So let's take out all those questions. People in the comments, let's take that out.
Derek, you better
assuming Giannis is playing.
They're in trouble if he doesn't.
Well, yeah, I think that goes with it. I think everyone on this here can say that the Suns are going to win if Giannis doesn't play. So we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, I should have asked you before he came on the air, because I'm sitting here scrambling and I'm writing down Giannis or Porter. Like, what do we or Portis? What are we going with here? Yeah. Like, is it going to be Giannis or is it going to be Portis?
Well, for the sake of that, let's go Giannis. Holiday, Middleton, Tucker, Giannis, and Brook Lopez. For the Suns, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Michael Bridges, Jay Crowder. By the way, the only player in this NBA Finals who has been to an NBA Finals is Jay Crowder, and that is the 6 games that he played last season for the Miami Heat. And DeAndre Ayton, of course, at center for the Suns.
0 rings,
no rings on anywhere on this court.
Wow.
So, Mike, let's start off with you. Who has the advantage when it comes to the starting five for both teams?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say right out of the chute, I'm riding Team Phoenix here. I love the balance that they have. I absolutely love what they can do to you with their starting five and the way that they run their offense. I mean, before this year, Devin Booker's mid-range game was pretty much non-existent. He has learned that this is actually a part of basketball, that you can shoot between the 3-point line and when you get to the basket, and mostly because of what Chris Paul has taught him this year. And I mentioned DeAndre Ayton earlier in the show, and I just think what he brings to the table is paramount to what this team does. The pick and roll game that they run, the ability to kick it to the 3-point shooters and Mikal Bridges. And when Jay Crowder is hot, man, he's white hot. Like not just your red hot. He gets white hot. So what they're able to do offensively, I just love their starting five. And I'm going to go back to the Nets series for a second. And I just want to go back to that idea of like, what happened to the Bucks in the 2 games that there were not 3, but 2 stars on the floor against them? They got lit up in that series when there were 2 guys on the floor. And Booker and Paul they can be those guys. They can be those guys, and they can do a lot. It can cause you a lot of problems. So to me, it's the Suns. I don't think it's by much, but I'm the Suns here.
What do you think, Leonard?
Well, what they do on TV, you can't keep picking the same stuff. So, okay, I'm going to be very honest with you. I would love, as a fan, I would love to see the Suns win for Chris Paul to get a ring. Okay. Now, I feel like Chris Paul has not run into a guard
Mhm.
in the postseason like Drew Holiday. So now Drew Holiday has the defense and the offense to match Paul. Now Paul's crafty. I mean, that 41-point game, I think that's the pinnacle of the playoff games, right? I think he averaged 24 points in that series. You throw out that 41-point game, he averaged around 16 or 17 points a game. He's really good, but I don't think he's played against another guy like that. So Drew Holiday can post him up. Obviously, with the 1-2 punch, it's going to be tough. I mean, I know Ayton's really good, but I mean, Ayton doesn't really shoot outside 5 or 6 feet. So, I just feel like the Bucks would they have, by beating the Nets. I mean, you think about what the Nets did to them early in that series. I didn't think they had a chance. Their will was broken. They lost by, I don't know, 30, 40 points. It was a lot of points. They win the game. They win a game 7 on the road. They avoid, losing because Kevin Durant, I think, had 49 or 50 points that game. They win that series. They go in, they lose Giannis. And what happens? I mean, Portis and what's his face? Brooke Lopez. That's the guy. Yeah, I'm not getting that ESPN contract now. But anyway, Brooke Lopez, they just went off. They scored like a combined 50 points in one game. So yeah, I think what's going to happen is I think the Suns have a chance, but I think the Bucks are just going to wear them down and impose their defensive will. And I think the Suns think about it. They played in the first round. They beat the Lakers. Okay. No AD after game 3. Okay. Then they get to the next round against Denver. They're missing they're one of their best players, point guard. And then they get to the conference finals. What happens? Kawhi Leonard's missing. So although they've been playing don't get me wrong, I want to be a Suns hater, and it's nothing to do with the fact they beat the Lakers down really bad. Nothing to do with that. But look at the series and look at the players that missed in those series, and now you're playing a Bucks team that presumably is going to be fully healthy. They're not going to get anybody hurt, hopefully, and not be missing the series. So they're going to have to play a perfect series, I think, to beat the Bucks right now.
Now, Joe, be careful here. We know who you're taking, so let's not, make it blatantly obvious.
No, I actually have 2 and 2. I went Bucks on 2 of these. So,
okay.
But the first one I went with Phoenix. Listen, Chris Paul and Devin Booker, I think the Bucks would have to stop both of them, to be totally honest, or hold Booker to under 20, maybe 30. But you gotta make other guys beat you, and Crowder maybe Payne off the bench. But again, Ayton and Crowder are really big inside, like Lopez and I'll say it, Brooke Lopez has gotten a lot better in the NBA. I mean, I remember him playing at Stanford. I love college basketball, so that's why I always go back to college basketball. But Brooke Lopez wasn't that good in the college basketball. He really wasn't. I think
he was that good 5 years ago.
Right. So yeah, exactly. Thank you, Leonard. So he's a shot changer, though. He's going to affect Ayton probably. It'll be interesting to see then what Crowder will do, what the guards outside will do. I'm going to make it real simple. I just think Phoenix is on a roll. They're on a roll out in the desert. And I just think the offense is going to be too good. And the starting 5 is going to be able to overtake a really good Bucks team. I have nothing against the Bucks. I like the Bucks. I just think Phoenix is really good.
Extremely close, as Mike said. It wouldn't be a finals if it wasn't extremely close. Boy, PJ Tucker better play a lot better than what he did in that conference finals. He extremely struggled.
He can't play worse.
He can't do any worse. That's fair enough.
If he plays worse, they're going to trade him for a ham sandwich in the offseason. Like, seriously, dude. Seriously.
I'm going with the Bucks strictly because I think, oh boy, this could be controversial, but I think the third best scorer behind Giannis and Booker is Chris Middleton.
Well,
granted, there are games where when he does not play well, he does not play well. But when he is extremely hot, he's one of the best shooters in the NBA. It seems like you can't stop him.
Call him streaky. Would he be a streaky shooter?
Well, and and that's a lot to bet on, which is why they have zero chance, I don't think, if Antetokounmpo doesn't play. But I kind of liken Middleton to how Paul George played almost for the LA Clippers. When he played well, they were good. When he played horrible, they were not so good.
Well, that could be said about a lot of number twos.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you need look the days of Michael Jordan scoring 60 points and winning a playoff game. I think that's really out the window.
Yes,
I really feel like you need two players playing well and need a third complement. I mean, again, you could look at all the plus minus stats or whatever, like all those ones that they've come out with. But yeah, you're right. But I'll tell you what, if Chris Paul and Devin Booker play well and Ayton has a bad game, which he hasn't recently, I don't think they win either. So yeah, I think you need two stars to play well anymore to win in the NBA, especially in the playoffs.
So if we want to move to the bench here, very few players that we really need to talk about for both teams, because it's not really a ton of minutes either way. But I have 3 guys written down for the Bucks and 4 for the Suns. If you guys think other players may come into play, feel free. For the Milwaukee Bucks here, I have Bryn Forbes, shooting guard, average about 15 minutes a game. Pat Connaughton, shooting guard, average about 21 minutes a game. And Bobby Portis, who ended up filling in pretty much for Antetokounmpo when he went down in the final 2 games in the Eastern Conference Finals, which made them a very big team out there on the floor with Lopez, Portis, Tucker, and Middleton. He had about 19 minutes a game for the Suns. Cameron Payne, point guard, 20 minutes. Cameron Johnson, 20 minutes, small forward. Torrey Craig, 12 minutes, small forward. And power forward, as many people have been saying, the first from the process to make a NBA Finals, Dario Saric, 11 minutes for him. Joe, let's start off with you. Bench, who has the advantage for you?
Well, I wrote down 2 Suns guys in Dario Saric and Cameron Payne, and I did it only because, and I'm not taking them, I'm going Milwaukee, but they're the 2 guys I wrote down. I'm going Milwaukee because I love Jeff Teague. I don't know what it is about him. I like the way he plays. He's a good defender. He could surprise you. He could come off the bench and spell a Middleton or a Holiday and put pressure on the offense and score some points, even if it's some free throws. I like him going to the basket too. He's a little bit of a speed guy. So I like Jeff Teague. I like Bryn Forbes because Forbes, if I recall, he's a pretty decent shooter. So Forbes can get you 10 to 15 off the bench. And oh boy, do I love PJ Tucker, because Derek made a great point. And Leonard said it. He can't play worse. He can't play worse than he did in this last series. Well, boys, I'm going to tell you right now, PJ Tucker could be an X factor because he's a veteran guy. And Mike will tell you, I love veteran guys in sports. I get fired up about veteran guys. So PJ Tucker would be that veteran guy. So, Derek, I'm going Milwaukee.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm not going Milwaukee.
Surprise.
I'm gonna have a little fun here. Yeah, you mentioned Forbes. He's probably the key to the bench for me for Milwaukee. I do think Portis could play a big role in this, only because of what he's going to have to do to spell Antetokounmpo possibly. So I can see him playing a much larger role. But Bryn Forbes, guys, amazing to me. 78% of his field goal attempts are from beyond 3. He takes 46% of their threes. So if he's lighting it up like he can light it up, that their bench is going to score. For sure. That's just the way it goes for their bench. Most of their scoring is going to come from those starting 5, especially from the Giannis, Middleton, Holiday trio there. I love what Phoenix can bring off the bench. Dario Saric, guys, 6 assists per 36 minutes off the bench. That's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, that's like 7 games for him.
Yeah, like, and that's fine. I mean, but like in watching him play in Philadelphia, that dude can pass, and when you put him on the floor with Chris Paul, he's a really impressive player. He can dish, he can shoot. I'm a Dario Saric guy. I've always been a Dario Saric guy. Cameron Payne for me is another guy who who I think is someone that we have to talk about a little bit. 61% catch and shoot rate from three. Really good from the corner, which will be interesting in this series because the Bucks allow the least amount of corner threes in the playoffs of any team in the NBA. So, he loves to set up in the corner and shoot from there. And I'll be interested to see if he can get his shots off and make his shots. You already mentioned Cameron Johnson and also another guy that I love. I love his game as well. So I definitely think we'll see we'll see what they bring. I'm sorry, Cameron Johnson's who I was talking about with the corner threes. He's my guy for the corner threes. He's made 15 in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see if he's able to get his shot off. But yeah, I like Phoenix's bench just a bit better.
What do you think, Leonard?
Well, I'm going to go with Phoenix too. I just like the energy they bring off the bench. And look, this you could go either way. This is to me a coin flip. I really looked at this question probably the most of all the questions that you put on the paper, and I feel it is a coin flip. So I'm just going to go with the Suns. I just like the energy. I'm not into too much all these new age stats. I go by the look. I watch a game and I can just kind of see body language. I don't know. I just like the way the Suns play, and I like the way they play off the bench. And the two Camerons are definitely the energy that this Phoenix team needs. So yeah, PJ Tucker. I know he's a veteran guy. I just think he's kind of winding up his career. I think these young guys are gonna off the bench are gonna run around him a little bit. So yeah, I'll go Phoenix's bench.
Yeah, I like Connaughton. He seemed to, it was kind of odd seeing him play like the best players on the other teams when he came in, but and as much as I'd like to say Thanasis Antetokounmpo off of the bench for the Bucks, I don't know how many minutes he's getting.
These are way too long. I mean, these triple word score Scrabbles, Greek Freak 2, whatever.
The past 3 minutes I've been trying to look up how to say his name, and I still don't even positive.
I will say that the people on TV are they amazing. They never mispronounce people's names.
They know.
Yeah,
No.
that's pro level.
I'm gonna go with the Suns as well, because of the youth. I like the Camerons, and I like Saric. By the way, fun fact: Torrey Craig already has a ring, because he played 18 games with the Bucks earlier this season. So it doesn't matter who wins, he's already a champion. So good for Torrey Craig.
No, if you don't win it with the Bucks, no, he needs to get that ring back. No, I'd be like, just no.
Yeah, I guess that's a little sketchy, right?
Sorry, played 18 games, and then no, he needs to get that ring back if the Bucks
he's so fast too, by the way. He's lightning.
Rim runner.
He is just.
He's a great player. Yeah, I just think it's funny how no matter what he gets a ring.
Yeah, he's so fast. We were talking about him. I didn't mention him. I had him written down, but oh my God, he's so fast.
Yeah,
so fast.
Now, this may be the one that is maybe the most coin flip, unless one of you guys have a different opinion. For coach, obviously Mike Budenholzer in Milwaukee, Monty Williams in Phoenix. It's both of their first finals appearances in the playoffs. Budenholzer is 44-37. Monty Williams is 14-12, 12 of which were this year. Let's start with you, Leonard. Whip it around. Who has the advantage in terms of coaching, do you think?
Okay, so when how do you solve a coin flip? You think of one particular thing. So if the Suns would have lost in the Western Conference Finals, would Monty Williams been fired? No. If the Bucks would have lost either round, especially the Nets, Budenholzer's out of there. So right there, again, it's something very minor, but Monty Williams is the better coach by and I've never been a fan of Budenholzer, right? The Bucks coach, right? I've never really been a fan of his. I just think he's an okay coach. I mean, I don't know. I just, yeah, Monty Williams is the better coach. And I just feel like, and plus, he's an ex-player, so I'll just give him that.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm right there with him. It's Monty Williams for me. I know, Leonard, you've mentioned a couple times you're not a fan of my in-game stats. I'm going to throw another one at you here.
Oh, here we go.
Budenholzer,
right? There's got to be one of us that embraces the.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
I'm right there with you. There's a look to things, but I think stats tell a part of the story as well. And I think Budenholzer effect coming out of timeouts. Milwaukee's third defensively in points allowed after timeouts. So, he does a good job of setting them up defensively. On the other side of that, though, we saw in the last series and the series before what Monty Williams does offensively coming out of timeouts. And I gotta tell you, like, the adjustments that you make when Trae Young's on the floor and you're guarding Kevin Huerter off pick and roll ain't the same thing as guarding Devin Booker and Chris Paul off pick and roll. You're not going to be able to slide under that pick and roll in this series, guy. It's not going to happen. You're going to have a better adjustment than Brooke Lopez popping out on Devin Booker or Chris Paul. It's going to have to be a better adjustment. I don't know that he has one. To me, this is one of the more well-rounded teams that he's going to have to adjust to in that regard. So yeah, I'm going Monty as well, same as Leonard.
Joe?
I wrote down Monty Williams, and to be honest, I'm not sure if I knew why. I think I've liked the Suns for it's really funny at my 4th of July picnic yesterday. Derek, one of my relatives goes, "Well, when did you pick the Suns?" And I said, and he's a basketball guy, and he goes, "Well, if it was only 3 weeks ago, I'm not giving you that." And I said, "Well, it was 3 weeks ago, so I can't tell you anything different." But anyway, no, listen, when you have a team like the Suns that are playing well together, and you incorporate Paul into the mix, he's a veteran guy. You have DeAndre, and again, a young guy. Monty Williams just seems to know what he's doing. I don't care if he's got 14 wins. Buden, whatever his name is, he only has, he's got wins, but Monty Williams is a young coach, right? And I love Leonard's point. He was a player, so let's go with the player. We went with the player with McMillian. I'm going with the player in Monty Williams. Monty Williams, president.
It's sweep, which is, I will say, is interesting because up until this year, yes, Monty Williams has won 2 playoff games, whereas Budenholzer is 44-37, like I said. I read this very interesting article about Monty Williams and a former coach that he used to play for, and how that coach emphasized talking to your players, and it seems like that seems to be the path that he's going. It doesn't hurt that you have someone like Chris Paul running the point, who is like the floor general out there. But and yes, they're playing amazing basketball. I know they have been playing against teams that are injured, but still they've been coming out and winning games that they were supposed to win. But give me Williams as well. So that's the first clean sweep for the 4 of us. Joe, let's start off with you with our final who has the advantage. I wrote down star power because when I think it's become apparent when you need a big shot, who's going to make that shot? Who can you count on? Who has the best star power, the advantage in terms of star power in these 2 teams?
This was hard, and I'll give you a brief summary of how I got here. I went with Giannis, Holiday, and Middleton just because I think that as much as I love the Suns, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and even we'll throw in DeAndre Ayton in there. Bridges okay, but I still think they're the 3. I just don't know if the Bucks can get the baskets from Middleton and Holiday, and in turn Giannis stays healthy and he scores like he can. I just wonder if their star power isn't gonna be better than the Suns. I had a hard time with this one. I also told you I made it even, so I went 2-2. But honestly, I'd love to hear what Leonard and Mike and of course you, Derek, have to say. But I went Milwaukee, guys. I do like those three players.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I went back and forth on this one. I had a really hard time with this question. I know I've been really Phoenix heavy with all my answers here, and unfortunately, it's not going to change at the end of the day here. But I did have a hard time with this, and what it came down to for me was sort of, you know, getting your shot from anywhere when it comes down to it, right? You said you're going to need someone to make a shot at the end of a game, right? And when I think about the stars on these two teams, I think Giannis and I think Devin Booker, Chris Paul. We talked about Middleton earlier. Like, yeah, he carried them when Giannis went down. But we also talked about on the last show that Atlanta perimeter defense is very poor. It is very poor. It's not going to be that way in this series. Jay Crowder is not a bad defender, and that's who Middleton is going to be matched up with for most of this series. And that's a much more difficult matchup than a Kevin Huerter or a Gallinari or, you know, those types of guys. Like, it's not the same. So when I think about creating your own shot and needing to make the big shot at the end of a game, I'm putting the ball in Devin Booker and Chris Paul's hands because I know they can get their shot from pretty much anywhere on the floor. They can create from all three levels. Whereas, you know, you can force Giannis to take that three or that mid-range jump shot and it might not fall. You can't let Devin Booker pull up because it might fall. There's a good chance it's falling. So I landed on Phoenix, and that's why that was not an easy one. That's a great question.
And Leonard.
Well, when I think of star power, I think of all of those intangibles that go into being a star. And Chris Paul is the star that shines the brightest, in my opinion. So he's on the Suns. I would say that that's going to be the tipping point, although I picked the Bucks kind of didn't want to go with the crowd. But I feel like Chris Paul is the star. I mean, he's charismatic. He's a leader. He hits big shots. He's tough. I mean, who knows how much pain he was in when he hurt his shoulder in the first round. You know, he comes back from his COVID thing and he just lights up. You know, I just feel like he's the guy. He's the guy that can get the shot at the end of the game. He's fearless. He's tough. He's the guy. That's one star. He will. I think he's the guy that's going to swing this series. And we'll see. We'll definitely see. But Chris Paul, I'm right with Chris Paul as star power.
He's very likable too, I will say.
Yeah, in those State Farm commercials.
Yeah.
You're guarding him. He will cut your heart out.
Cross you up.
And bonus question, everyone, and real quick, we're starting right now and moving forward. Who do you want on your team as the guy to build around? I would imagine we're down to two names. Chris Paul's a little older. I don't think Chris Middleton is that level. So I think we're talking about Giannis and Booker. Leonard, start us off real quick and just a quick brief summary. Who do you want moving forward? Which do you take?
I'm going to go with Giannis because Giannis hasn't hit his peak yet. Devin Booker is a hell of a player, unbelievable player. He's showed in these playoffs that he is a star, okay, and he will be a star moving forward. But Giannis I think he's just scratched the surface. I mean, he has to be able to make free throws. If he can make free throws, if he can make a consistent jump shot, I mean, the guy could legitimately be a 30-plus point scorer, 12, 14 rebounds, 5, 6 assists, a couple of block shots. He can do everything, and he's so young. So I'll take him because I feel he hasn't hit his potential, his peak yet. I think this is the best Devin Booker's going to be. I think he's very good, and he'll be good from years to come. But Giannis the sky's the limit with him.
Mike?
Devin Booker. No, I knew you were gonna pick that.
I knew you were gonna pick that.
No, Devin Booker's 24 years old, and I think to your point, I agree. I think Giannis can do a lot of things really well. But I think Devin Booker just figured out that he can do a lot of different things really well too. And I think that's a huge credit to Chris Paul. Coming to Phoenix, choosing to go to a team who was a lottery team before he came, and give these young kids the confidence that they need to be a winner. And I think Devin Booker needed that mentality to become what he is now. And we saw the killer instinct in these playoffs when he didn't have Chris Paul that we might not have seen before. And Devin Booker's playing with a confidence and a swagger that I think we talked about Trae Young having prior to this conversation. And I think, Devin Booker's in that conversation of, I'm not just the guy, and I'm not just a guy anymore. I'm a superstar in this league. And I think we're going to watch him continue to grow after this. Again, that's a great question, because I think anybody would take either of them. But if I had my choice right now going into this series, I'm taking Devin Booker. Just love him.
But keep in mind, Chris Paul went to Phoenix. There was not a lot of teams that had the cap space to work with that huge contract, which, I mean, he's proving that he's worth it. But there's something to be said about that too. There were other teams that wanted him, but they couldn't figure out a way to get him on the books. So I give Chris Paul a lot of credit by going there, obviously, but the money had something to do with it. And yeah, you're right. Devin Booker's amazing. We just all can't say the same crap all the time, right? So, but no, it's literally, it's one of those coin flips, because it's like you can't pick wrong. I mean, if you're an NBA general manager and you had one of those people to pick, you can't go wrong. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think and another thing about these two players, they're just good people too. They're just high character people. Devin Booker was embarrassed after he had that little issue in Game 3 with the Lakers. Like he just had a little issue. He apologized. He was fine. Giannis is always very complimentary of his teammates. You never see him badmouthing his teammates. They're not just good players, but they're just excellent character people. So that's what you really want to build a franchise around too.
They're great for the game. They're great for the game, both of them.
And Joe, what do you think?
Well, I'm going Giannis. I love Booker too, but something he reminds me, I want to say like a Tim Duncan. I know he's probably a little better with the ball handling than Tim Duncan ever was, but man, he can take over a game. I mean, he's going to get you anywhere from 20 to 30 points, sometimes more. He's going to rebound. He's going to give you, he can pass the ball. He's just kind of like, that type of player that can do it all. And to me, you both are right about Mike and Leonard both saying, like, you start a team, you want to have the most caliber guy, you want to have a character guy. And Giannis, he just seems like he's, again, the likable factor. He's just that guy. And this was a tough one too, though. Booker's such a great player, and I enjoy watching him shoot the heck out of the basketball. I would say though, gun to my head, Giannis.
Yeah, I'm going Devin Booker actually. I think Mike is right. I think something turned on this year, and he is. I think the main thing that stood out to me was last year, by the way, they were not barely. They played very well at the end and almost made it out of the bubble and into the playoffs, but they didn't make the playoffs last year. That was without Chris Paul and I guess Jay Crowder. That's pretty much it. So they were not a playoff team. Going into game one against the Clippers, Devin Booker dominated that game and did what he needed to do without Chris Paul in order to, and he became the distributor. He became the shooter. He did everything for that team. And I think this is his breakout. I think this is definitely his breakout, and we're going to see him. Will he ever score 71 again? Well, I don't know, but that's a very difficult feat in itself. Giannis, I love Giannis. He's one of the most difficult players to guard, but if he could just shoot halfway decently, he would be the best scorer. Maybe Kevin Durant, but the best scorer in the NBA. If he could halfway shoot, some of the free throw numbers and what he was doing was brutal to watch. And I don't see that as the best. There's some guy that I definitely want going forward, but like you said, we're splitting hairs here, Mike. They're both amazing players.
I think with construction costs being very high, I think that we just have to get Ben Simmons and Giannis to shoot 3-pointers. The Bills will have bricks for
Man.
They
are.
It's funny when you watch the TNT panel and Shaq is on there, and he just, I mean, come on, that guy couldn't make free throws either, but he made it when they counted. But it is horrendous. The teams are counting down because he takes more than 10 seconds, and I think that's all a mental. I think once he gets past this mental block and shooting, he'll be fine. He has the skills. I mean, the guy takes like 2 steps from the 3-point arc and he's in the paint.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
They don't call traveling anymore. I mean, you literally have to walk from half court to travel. So yeah, you get 2 steps in the paint, dunk. I mean, I don't know what the heck.
Well, this is it. And why don't we start off with the least suspenseful pick? We'll start off with Joe. Joe, tell us the Suns win. How do the Suns win this series? How do the Bucks win? And ultimately, what is your prediction and how many games for the NBA Finals?
So I said if the Suns win, Chris Paul is going to control the tempo of the game. He's going to make shots. He's going to do what Chris Paul does. He's going to lead the team. I also said that Booker is going to need to hit some big shots. And I'm not just talking about threes. He might have to hit some shots when he gets fouled, do good from the line, just have a good shooting percentage. And DeAndre Ayton is going to have to be inside a lot to get baskets over Brook Lopez. I think that's a big key matchup. The Bucks win if Giannis plays and plays considerably well. If he scores 30 a game, it could be difficult for the Suns. Middleton and Holiday, who we've touched on a lot over the last couple of weeks, they're important, and they both have to play really well defensively and, again, both offensively. Well, I'll say it now, and I try to give the Bucks love, but it's Phoenix, and it's Phoenix in 6. I got the Suns in 6, Derek. Mike Leonard.
Mike.
Okay. Well, if the Suns win.
Leonard, go ahead. Did you say Leonard? I missed that, Joe. Sorry.
If the Suns win, they shoot well. They just shoot 3-pointers well. If the Bucks win, the Bucks are just going to clamp down on defense and make them drag out uglier games. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, obviously, Giannis has to be healthy, and Ayton's got to be inside to put fouls on Brook Lopez. We get that. But I think where Phoenix has the strength is they have the strength with their shooting, and I think the Bucks have their advantage with their defense. So, and I don't know. I really want the Suns to win. So I'm just going to go with – I'm typically not like this, but I'm just going to go what I want to happen, and I want the Suns to win. I want the Suns to win. I think it's going to be great for it to be in 7 games, and I would love to see Chris Paul have a similar – Game 7 like he had Game 6, right off into the sunset, win the NBA Finals MVP in the mid-20s, 10 assists, a couple steals. Devin Booker has a coming out party. The Bucks give it all they got. They throw a bunch of punches, but in the end, Chris Paul and Monty Williams just eke out in 7 games. I'm just going to go that. That's what I want. I want to see Chris Paul win a championship.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So a lot of what everybody said there. I'm going to go Bucks will win if they can stop the pick and roll game. I think that's the biggest key for them. I mean, that's what the Suns do best. They're not going to be, like I said before, they can't play we're going to go underneath all these screens, and that's not going to work in this series because Chris Paul will pull up from the mid-range and he'll just kill you from there. He'll kill you from there. And if you get too aggressive, he'll just throw the lob. Like it's the way it's going to be. So that they're going to, like you said, Leonard, they're going to have to clamp down defensively and make sure that they're just not playing games with them with that pick and roll. And I think for the Suns to win, we talked about it. You need your third scorer, and the Suns have walked through these playoffs because DeAndre Ayton has been the guy. He's been the third piece to this puzzle. Chris Paul and Booker have done everything they've needed to do. Here's the difference. Ayton doesn't get the luxury of not having to deal with he doesn't have to deal with Jokic, who's not a good defender in this series. He doesn't have to deal with not knowing, if we're going to go small with the Clippers, if we're going to go with that's not happening. It's Brook Lopez, who's a very good defender. He's very, very talented. He's aggressive. He plays his size. So it will be a challenge for Ayton to overcome. And, at the end of the day, I'm in total agreement with Leonard on this. I think it's going to be Suns in 7. I think this is going to be one heck of a series in one of the strangest playoffs I have ever seen as an NBA fan. I've never seen a playoff that has had this much parity, with this many injuries, with not knowing what's going to happen next, and the upsets and all of these different things that have happened. I think we're going to get a classic. I think Suns in 7, and I think it's going to be a really tight back and forth game 7 where, Chris Paul walks away with the MVP. I'm total agreement with everything that Leonard said.
I would agree on something.
We got there. It took us all show, but we got there.
An hour and whatever, how many minutes, but we finally got there.
You might have seen me scrambling and writing stuff down. That's because I can't make it a clean sweep, right? I gotta come up with some reasons why I'm picking the Bucks. Oh man, I think it comes down to Drew Holiday for the Bucks. If he played very well towards the tail end of that series. Especially when Giannis was not there. He's especially when he was struggling mightily in the first 2 rounds of the series. If Drew Holiday can continue to be that ball creator, or that creator of the offense, and shut down defensively, obviously, Mike mentioned the pick and roll schemes. Are they going to go on top of the pick or below the pick? When they went below, I'm not 100% sure what that's called off the top of my head, but Trae Young put up 48 points in game 1, and that made them switch their philosophy a little bit to overall switching. However, the Suns win. I think it's going to be because of the young players off the bench are going to have a key part of this and really gets that offense going, as well as Devin Booker, which is no easy task. I don't know who's going to guard Devin Booker. I would have to assume Holiday is guarding Chris Paul. So is Chris Middleton going to guard Devin Booker? I don't know. I don't know if he can keep up with him. Is Chris Paul going to win his first title in 16 years? No, says me. I don't know. I tried. At least I can say maybe we declared the Bucks a finals contender too quickly, and declared Giannis a failure, Giannis a Robin. He needs his Batman. I think we did that too quickly maybe, and bringing in Drew Holiday, I think, was very key to this team and his creating in the offense, which was a piece that he did not have. Chris Middleton is a great second scorer, but I think Drew Holiday was very key. Give me Bucks in 6, boys. I'll be the one. I'll go with the Bucks.
That would mean that you have to win on the road, right? Or no?
They'd have to get 1, right? In Phoenix?
A 6 would be at home.
What? Oh, you know what? I'm still thinking that 2-3-2 format.
Right. Oh, no. It's not, but it's not that, right?
They finally did it the right way. Yeah.
So, well, that'll do it, guys. That'll do it, everybody, for our NBA Finals preview and conference final recap. We appreciate everyone watching, and we appreciate the guys who helped us out. Check them out in a few weeks. Joe, I know I'm not supposed to talk future, but they'll be on for us for the recap of the NBA Finals. So check them out again. Are
we getting the 1990s NBA theme song from NBC?
Oh, we need to find it.
Do that.
Wink, wink. Check out the video there.
Oh, nice.
We'll see.
I will. I can't wait.
Mike, Leonard, Thank you very much both for coming on. We appreciate you guys helping us
Thanks,
out.
guys.
It was fun.
All right, see you guys.
Joseph, final thoughts.
The NBA Finals is gonna probably be must-see TV, and I always say it's really gonna be interesting to see who takes advantage of the home court. Right? You know, you don't want to lose a game there, but if you win 2 in a row, then that's a big deal. So it's gonna be depending on that, and I think the guard play could come down to this series. I think whoever has the best guard play is gonna win this series, hands down. But as I'll say it again, let's go Suns.
And congrats, Joe. You win nothing if the Phoenix Suns end up winning. Congratulations.
Also, would like to congratulate Joseph on getting through an entire show without making a Phillies reference.
Yes.
Derek, or baseball reference, Derek.
No references. Anyways,
You're all grown up.
we appreciate everyone watching. Timeout fans, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Who is winning the NBA Finals and in how many games? Let us know your thoughts. As always, everyone, don't forget to follow us on YouTube. Subscribe and like on YouTube. It'll help Joe and I grow our channel, all podcast platforms, Facebook group, and email us, timeoutderekandjoe@gmail.com. As always, everyone, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Stay safe and enjoy the NBA Finals.